Good morning, everybody. This is your purchasing manager, Danny Poolman, and I'm here today to talk about how to make a district purchase. Now, what do I mean when I say a district purchase? Well, I'm not talking about purchasing a school district itself, even though I know that's all of our dreams is to buy a school district and appoint ourselves a superintendent and run it as we see fit. But that's not what I'm here to talk about today. The simple definition of a district purchase is any purchase made with district funds, and that would include any method of purchase, whether that's a P-card, a PO, or a request for check. I also wanted to add that the guidelines and the information I'm about to go over apply to non-district funds that flow through district accounts. For instance, if you have a program at your campus with a booster club, and that booster club raises some money, and for whatever reason, they have to turn it over to your campus, and the campus puts it into a district account, that then becomes a district purchase. And district purchases include grant funds as well. So let's say you need to make a purchase. You know what you need. What's the first step? The first step, your first consideration should be, is the item available through the district's distribution warehouse? We have a 30,000 square foot distribution warehouse. It houses all kinds of items, likely something that you would use on a daily basis. It's always a good idea to check with the warehouse first to see if they can provide what it is that you need. You can contact the warehouse at 6960 or email distributioncenter@roundrockisd.org to check. A few sample items that they have would be paper, furniture, maintenance supplies, healthcare supplies, housekeeping supplies, and a multitude of surplus items. So let's say the warehouse doesn't have what you're looking for, what you need. Your next consideration would be to check and see if one of our district contracts can provide the item. We have a couple of great resources to search our district contracts. One of them is the Active Contracts page. On the Active Contracts page, you can search by contract. If you need to search by vendor or commodity code or a keyword, you can use another one of our great resources, which is the Awesome Table. A lot of you are very familiar with it. It's a great tool. Our district contracts include a very large variety of products and services that are frequently used by campuses and departments. There's a good chance that what you're looking for is available through a district contract. If the district doesn't have a contract in place that can provide the item or service you need, there's another option of using an interlocal contract. What is an interlocal contract? We also refer to them as cooperative contracts. They are a cooperative entity, or an interlocal is an entity that's gone through a competitive bid process to establish a contract for a product or service that meets the same standards and requirements that the district must follow in our own bidding process. The district would pay a fee to those entities to become a member of that interlocal or cooperative agency, and that allows us to be able to use the contracts that they've established. And it's a great way for us to save a great deal of time and effort in our procurement process. I do want to add that end users must still receive approval from the purchasing office prior to purchasing through an interlocal contract or a cooperative entity. You can contact your buyer to check if an item is available through an interlocal contract. I know that you all don't have the access to the listings and of everything that is available. So always just check with your buyer, and they can do some research and check our various interlocal contracts for you. If the item isn't available through a district contract or an interlocal contract, it is possible that the item could be available through a sole source provider. What does sole source mean? It means an item that's only available from one source and not through any other distributors or dealers. These are items like a film, a manuscript, a book, a utility service, or a captive replacement part or component part for a piece of equipment you might have. Some things that are not considered sole source would be any service any and all services. No services can be considered sole source. Or a product for which two or more manufacturers make their own version of it. For instance, an example might be a rug in a classroom that has educational type things on it, say a music rug. One vendor might claim that they are the sole source provider of that rug because they make it. But as we all know, we could likely do a search on the internet and find several manufacturers that make their own version of that, so it would not be considered sole source. A lot of vendors will claim that they're the sole source provider of their product, and they may have in fact been approved by other school districts as a sole source provider. However, Round Rock ISD has their own sole source application they must fill out, and the Round Rock ISD purchasing office must approve them as sole source. So what do you do if an item is not available through any of these means? At that point, how you proceed with your purchase will depend on the dollar amount being spent. We have certain thresholds that will determine what process you'll have to go through. If your purchase is less than $1,000, there's a good chance that it can be approved by the purchasing office. For purchases less than $1,000, we don't require you to attempt competition, or no bidding process is required. However, the end user is encouraged to gather a minimum of 3 quotes. And here we're just asking that you basically would spend your district funds the same way that you would spend your own money, in that a lot of you, I'm sure, would check around at least a minimum of 3 different places, 3 different stores, or 3 different websites, and check pricing. And that's really all that we ask that you do. For purchases in the $1,000 to $5,000 range, again, no quotes are required. However, you are encouraged to gather a minimum of 3 quotes, as I mentioned before. We do prefer you use vendors that are already registered in our eRock system to obtain those quotes. You can contact purchasing and get a list of those vendors. These are vendors that have already registered in our system. They want to do business with Round Rock ISD, so it's preferred to go to them first. They're often local as well. And for purchases in this range, we ask that you gather a minimum of 3 quotes and retain those quotes in your records. This would be in the event that that purchase were to be audited. Having those quotes in your records, we would be able to show that we've done due diligence for that purchase. For purchases in the $5,000 to $10,000 range, we do require a minimum of 3 quotes. And again, the eRock vendors are preferred. We also require you to fill out a quote summary form, which you see a screenshot of here on the right side of the screen. You'll have to submit that completed quote summary form and a copy of your quotes to your buyer, and attach it to your requisition or your purchase order as well. The buyer will assign a quote number, and that number is to be referenced on your requisition in the contract number field. For purchases in the $10,000 to $50,000 range, we do require a competitive bid process. At this range, the $10,000 to $50,000 range, you'll work with your buyer to go through that competitive bid process. At this level, we do not require that the bid be published in a newspaper. Anything over $50,000, though, however, does require to be published in the newspaper. Competitive bid processes in this range are typically based on price and awarded to the lowest bidder. If your purchase is going to be over $50,000, we do require that you go through a formal bid process. Compared to the $10,000 to $50,000 range, the formal bid process just has a couple more requirements. We're required by law that we have to advertise that bid in the 2 separate newspapers for 2 consecutive weeks. These RFPs, or requests for proposal, is a term you've probably heard. are awarded based on best value and not simply the lowest bid. A formal bid process typically takes 60 to 90 days. That includes time for development of the bid documents, issuance of the RFP, evaluation, and negotiation of the award. So we always encourage you to start this process as early as possible. That's really about it for today. I thank everyone for coming. I hope this was informative and helpful. If you have any questions, you can submit them now through the Google Hangout. If you don't have any questions at this time, but maybe think of one later, you can always email myself or purchasing at Round Rock ISD, or just give us a call at 6950, and we'll contact you, or we'll connect you with your buyer.